Captain Lee Hanna stared at her screen in the dark communication room of the human warship Indomitable. The ship moved through deep space, far from Earth and the safety of human colonies. She had been listening to space radio signals for 12 hours straight. Her job was simple but important: catch any alien messages that might threaten human space. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago. Her eyes felt heavy, but she kept watching the green lines that showed radio waves from across the galaxy. Most signals were just noise, the sound of stars being born or dying in the vast emptiness of space. Then something changed. A new signal appeared on her screen. It was different from all the others. This signal had a pattern, like someone was trying to talk. Lee Hanna sat up straight and turned up the volume. Strange sounds filled the room. Not human sounds, but clearly made by someone intelligent. She pressed the emergency button on her desk. Red lights started flashing all over the ship. Within minutes, Commander Kim Tae rushed into the communication room. He was a big man with scars on his face from old battles. Behind him came Admiral Park Jun, the leader of their fleet. "What do you have, Captain?" Admiral Park asked. He was older than the others, with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many wars. "Sir, I think it's a distress call," Lee Hanna said. She played the signal again. The alien voices sounded scared and desperate. Even though they could not understand the words, the fear was clear. Commander Kim moved to another computer and started working. His fingers flew over the keyboard as he tried to figure out where the signal came from. After a few minutes, he looked up with a worried face. "Admiral, this signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. That's very far from here, in a part of space we have never explored." Admiral Park rubbed his chin. He was thinking hard. "Can we understand what they are saying?" Lee Hanna shook her head. "Not yet, sir, but listen to this." She pressed another button, and the same message played, but slower. The signal uses the same emergency frequencies that all space-traveling species use. This is definitely a call for help. "How far is Kepler 442? The Admiral asked. "About 6 weeks travel time with our fastest ships," Commander Kim replied. "Sir, there is something else. The signal was not sent to us." Everyone in the room looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean?" Admiral Park asked. Commander Kim pointed to his screen. "I ran the signal through our computers. It was meant for the Valdari people. They live in a different part of the galaxy." Lee Hanna had heard of the Valdari. They were known as peaceful aliens who helped solve fights between other species. They were like space doctors, always trying to heal and help instead of fight. "So why did we get the message?" Admiral Park asked. "The Valdari communication network must be down," Commander Kim said. "Or maybe the Valdari are in trouble too. The signal bounced around space until our equipment picked it up by accident." Admiral Park walked to the big window that showed the stars outside. He stood there quietly for a long time. Lee Hanna knew he was making a big decision. The human fleet was strong, but they were far from home. Going to help unknown aliens could be dangerous. "Sir," Lieutenant Song Yuna said as she entered the room. She was young but very smart about military tactics. "I have been studying the signal with our computers. I think I know what is happening." She moved to the main screen and showed them a star map. Red dots marked dangerous areas while blue dots showed friendly alien territories. "The signal mentions something called the hegemony," she said. "Our computers have some information about them. They are a group of alien species that attack other worlds and make them into slaves." Lee Hanna felt cold fear in her stomach. She had heard stories about slave-taking aliens, but they had never come near human space before. Lieutenant Song continued. "The signal talks about burning cities and people being taken away in ships. Whoever sent this message, they are dying." Admiral Park turned away from the window. His face was hard like stone. "How big is this hegemony?" "We do not know for sure, sir," Commander Kim said. "But if they can attack a whole star system, they must have many ships and soldiers." The Admiral walked back to Lee Hanna's station. He looked at the screen showing the alien distress call. The signal was still coming over and over like someone screaming for help in the dark. "Captain Lee, keep listening to that signal. Try to learn as much as you can about what is happening there." "Yes, sir." "Commander Kim, I want you to find Out everything our computers know about the hegemony and the Kepler 442 system. Right away, Admiral. Lieutenant Song, start planning a military mission to that system. I want to know how many ships we need and how long it will take. Lieutenant Song looked surprised. Sir, are we really going to help them? The message was not even sent to us. Admiral Park looked around the room at his officers. They were all good people, brave and smart. They had followed him through many dangerous missions. Let me tell you something about humans, he said in a quiet voice. When someone is drowning, we do not ask if they called our name before we jump in to save them. We just save them. Lee Hanna felt proud to serve under Admiral Park. This was why humans were respected across the galaxy, even though many aliens thought they were too violent. Humans would fight to protect others, even complete strangers. But sir, Commander Kim said carefully, this could be a trap. Maybe the hegemony sent that signal to make us come to them. Maybe, Admiral Park agreed. But what if it is real? What if there are millions of innocent people dying while we stand here being careful? The room was quiet. Everyone knew the Admiral was right, but they also knew how dangerous this could be. The human fleet was strong, but they were just one small group of ships in a huge galaxy full of enemies. I have made my decision, Admiral Park said. We will go to Kepler 442. We will help whoever sent that signal. Sir, should we ask Earth for permission first? Lieutenant Song asked. Admiral Park smiled for the first time that day. By the time we send a message to Earth and wait for an answer, everyone in that system will be dead or enslaved. Sometimes you have to do what is right without waiting for someone to tell you it is okay. Lee Hanna watched as the Admiral walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back to them. Get the fleet ready for long-range travel. Tell all ship captains to prepare for battle, and send a message to Earth. Tell them we found people who need help and we are going to give it to them. After the Admiral left, the communication room was busy with activity. Lee Hanna kept listening to the alien distress call while others prepared the fleet for the long journey ahead. As she listened to the scared alien voices, she wondered what they would find at Kepler 442. Would they arrive in time to help? Would the human fleet be strong enough to fight the hegemony? She did not know the answers, but she knew one thing for sure. They had to try. That is what humans did. They helped others even when it was dangerous, even when no one asked them to. The Indomitable and the rest of the human fleet changed course toward the Kepler 442 system. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another star in the vast darkness. Ahead of them waited unknown dangers and people who needed help. Lee Hanna kept listening to the alien voices, and for the first time she thought she heard something new in their desperate calls. Maybe hope. 6 weeks later, the human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they saw made everyone stop breathing. The planet Kepler 442b hung in space like a beautiful blue and green jewel, but it was covered in smoke and fire. Even from far away, they could see explosions lighting up the night side of the world. Strange alien ships surrounded the planet like hungry wolves around a dying animal. Admiral Park Jun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the terrible scene through the main window. Next to him, Dr. Yang Sora looked through her scientific equipment to study the planet below. Admiral, she said in a shocked voice, there are cities down there. Or there were cities. Most of them are burning now. Captain An Minho, the leader of the human Marines, joined them at the window. He was a big, tough man who had fought in many ground battles. Even he looked upset at what they were seeing. How many enemy ships? Admiral Park asked. Lieutenant Song Yuna checked her screens. I count 47 alien vessels, sir. They are much bigger than our ships, but they look old and slow. Are they the same ships that have been attacking the planet? Yes, sir. They have been bombing the surface for hours. I can see landing craft going up and down from the planet. Admiral Park felt anger growing in his chest. These alien attackers were not just conquering the planet, they were destroying it for fun. Captain Lee, he called to the communication officer. Can you contact the planet? Lee Hanna worked at her station trying to find any signals from the surface. Sir, I am getting very weak transmissions. Most communication centers have been destroyed, but there are still some survivors trying to call for help. Put it on the main speakers. The bridge filled with alien voices speaking in their strange language. Even without understanding the words, everyone could hear the fear and pain. These were not soldiers fighting a war. These were innocent people begging for their lives. Dr. Yang Sora had been studying the signals with her translation equipment. Admiral, I think I can make some sense of their language. Give me a few more minutes. While Dr. Yang worked, Pilot Major Choi Woo contacted the bridge from his fighter squadron. Admiral, my pilots are ready to attack. Just give us the word. Admiral. Park looked at the enemy ships again. There were many of them, and they were big. The human fleet was smaller, but human ships were faster and their weapons were more advanced. Not yet, Major. We need to know more about what we are fighting. Dr. Yang Sora suddenly looked up from her equipment with excitement. Admiral, I have established contact with someone on the surface. Put it through. The speakers crackled and then a new voice came through. Still alien, but Dr. Yang was translating in real time. Please, anyone, help us. The hegemony ships came 3 days ago. They destroyed our orbital defenses in minutes. They are taking our people as slaves and burning everything else. My name is Elder Kithara. I am speaking for the Alani people. We do not know how to fight. We have never had wars. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. The bridge was completely quiet. Everyone felt the same sadness and anger. Dr. Yang Sora spoke into her microphone, and her words were translated into the alien language. Elder Kithara, this is Dr. Yang Sora of the human fleet. We received your distress signal. We are here to help you. The alien voice came back full of surprise and hope. Humans, we have never heard of your species. Are you warriors? Dr. Yang looked at Admiral Park, who nodded for her to answer. Yes, we are warriors, but we are also protectors. We fight to defend innocent people. Please hurry, Elder Kithara said. They are loading the last transport ships now. Soon there will be no Ilani left on this world. Admiral Park stepped forward. Dr. Yang, tell him we are coming. Tell him to keep his people hidden until we deal with the enemy ships. As Dr. Yang translated the message, Admiral Park turned to his officers. Captain An, prepare your Marines for a ground mission. You need to find and protect any survivors. Yes, sir. How many enemies should we expect on the ground? Lieutenant. Song checked her tactical displays. Sir, I count at least 20 landing craft. Each one could carry 100 enemy soldiers. So we are looking at 2,000 enemies on the surface plus 47 ships in space, Admiral Park said. Not good odds, but we have faced worse. That was not exactly true. The human fleet had never fought this many enemies at once. But Admiral Park knew that showing fear would make his crew nervous. Major Choi, launch all fighter squadrons. I want them to attack the enemy landing craft first. Stop them from taking any more prisoners. Understood, sir. The hangar bays of the human ships opened, and hundreds of small fighter craft flew out like angry bees. They moved much faster than the big enemy ships, darting between them and firing at the landing craft trying to escape from the planet. The enemy fleet was caught by surprise. They had been focused on the planet below and had not noticed the human ships arriving. Several landing craft exploded before they could reach the safety of the larger vessels. Enemy ships are turning to face us, Lieutenant Song reported. They are forming a battle line. Through the main window, they could see the alien warships moving into position. They were huge and covered in weapons, like floating metal fortresses. Human ships, this is Admiral Park, he announced over the fleet communication system. Remember your training. These enemies are bigger than us, but we are smarter and faster. Use that advantage. The first enemy ship fired its main gun. A massive energy beam cut through space toward the Indomitable. But Captain Lee had been tracking their targeting systems, and she warned the pilot in time. The human flagship spun away from the blast and fired back with all its weapons. The space battle began in earnest. Human ships danced between the slower enemy vessels, firing quickly and then moving away before the aliens could return fire. It was like watching small dogs fighting big, slow bears. But the enemy had more ships, and their weapons were very powerful. When an enemy blast hit a human ship, it did serious damage. Admiral Park watched as one of his destroyers exploded in a ball of fire. "We cannot keep this up," Lieutenant Song said. "We need to end this fight quickly." Admiral Park had an idea. "Captain Lee, contact Dr. Yang on the surface. Ask Elder Cathara if there are any weaknesses in the hegemony ships. Anything they told him when they were threatening his people." A few minutes later, Dr. Yang's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, Elder Cathara says the hegemony commander bragged that their ships have powerful shields but weak engines. The engines are at the back of each ship and they are not well protected." "Perfect. All ships concentrate fire on the engine sections of the enemy vessels. If we can stop them from moving, we can defeat them." The human fleet changed tactics. Instead of attacking the heavily armored front sections of the enemy ships, they flew around behind them and attacked the engines. One by one, the big alien warships lost power and started drifting helplessly in space. The hegemony commander tried to call for reinforcements, but Captain Lee jammed their communications. The enemy ships found themselves cut off, unable to call for help and unable to fight effectively against the fast human vessels. After 2 hours of battle, half the enemy fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships tried to retreat, but Major Choi's fighters chased them down and destroyed most of them before they could escape. Only a few enemy ships got away, limping toward the edge of the star system. "Captain On, the orbital area is secure. Begin the ground mission," Admiral Park ordered. Transport ships full of human marines headed toward the planet's surface. Captain On led them personally, determined to find and protect any surviving Alani. What they found on the surface was both beautiful and heartbreaking. The Alani had built cities that looked like crystal gardens, with buildings that seemed to grow from the ground like plants. But most of these beautiful structures were now broken and burning. Captain An and his Marines moved carefully through the ruins, looking for survivors. They found Elder Cathara hiding in an underground shelter, with about 200 other Ilani. The Ilani were unlike any aliens the humans had seen before. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of colored crystal. They moved gracefully and spoke in musical voices. Most importantly, they were clearly not warriors. They had no weapons and seemed afraid of the human Marines. At first, Dr. Yang Sora landed with the second wave of transports. She spoke with Elder Cathara through her translation equipment. "Thank you for coming to help us," the Alani leader said. "But I do not understand. Why did you travel so far to help people you do not know?" Dr. Yang thought about how to explain human nature to someone who had never experienced war or violence. "Elder Cathara, where we come from, we believe that all intelligent life is precious. When someone is in danger, we help them. It does not matter if they are human or not. But surely you want something in return? Payment? Territory? We want nothing except to know that you are safe." Elder Cathara was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his musical voice was full of emotion. "The hegemony told us that all species in the galaxy were selfish and violent. They said that no one would ever help us, so we should give up and become their slaves. They were wrong." Dr. Yang smiled. "Yes, they were very wrong. 3 months after the battle at Kepler 442, the human fleet had grown much larger. Ships from Earth kept arriving, bringing more weapons, supplies, and soldiers. But they also brought something unexpected. Dozens of alien refugees who had escaped from hegemony slavery. Admiral Park Jun stood in the main conference room of Neosol Station, a huge space fortress that now orbited the rescued Alani planet. Around the table sat representatives from 12 different alien species. All of them had one thing in common. They had all been victims of the hegemony. "The situation is getting worse," said Ambassador Nam Hyun, the human diplomat who had been trying to organize resistance against the hegemony. "Every day we receive more distress calls from across the galaxy." Captain Lee Hana, now promoted to commander, operated the communication systems that allowed all these different species to talk to each other. Her translation programs had become very advanced, allowing real-time conversation between aliens who had never met before. "Commander Lee, show them the map," Admiral Park said. The holographic display in the center of the table lit up, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked hegemony territory, which covered nearly half of all known space. Blue dots showed free worlds, which were much fewer in number. In the past 3 months, 17 more star systems have fallen to the hegemony, Commander Lee reported. But we have also received secret messages from resistance groups on 43 worlds under hegemony control. One of the alien representatives, a tall creature with 4 arms named Zephion, spoke up. My people on Korvax Prime sent word that hegemony forces are preparing for something big. They are building many new warships. Another alien, a small being covered in fur called Yixara, added, the hegemony is angry about their defeat here. They want revenge against the humans. General Yu Ji-sung, who had been put in charge of training alien refugees, stood up to address the group. We have been teaching military tactics to volunteers from all your species. They are learning quickly, but we need more time. How much time? Admiral Park asked. At least 6 months to train enough soldiers for a real army. Right now we have maybe 5,000 alien fighters ready for combat. Engineer Ko Minji, who had been working on new weapons, spoke from her place at the table. I have been studying captured hegemony technology. Their ships are powerful, but they all use the same designs. If we can find the right weakness, we can defeat much larger fleets. Admiral Park nodded. What have you learned? Hegemony ships rely on centralized computer systems. If we can disrupt their command networks, entire fleets become helpless. This was good news, but Admiral Park knew it might not be enough. Intelligence reports suggested that the hegemony was preparing to attack with over 10,000 warships, more than had ever been gathered in one place before. Ambassador Nam looked worried as she read a message on her tablet. I have bad news from the Galactic Council. The other major powers have refused to help us fight the hegemony. Why? Asked Zephion angrily. Do they not see that the hegemony will come for them next? They are afraid, Ambassador Nam replied. The Valdari, the Centrex Federation, the Stellar Commonwealth, they all have powerful militaries, but they would rather hide behind their borders than fight. Admiral Park felt frustrated. The humans and their alien allies were brave, but they were badly outnumbered. Without help from the major galactic powers, this war might be impossible to win. What about the species under hegemony control? He asked. Are any of them willing to rebel? Commander Lee checked her messages. Sir, we have been receiving secret communications from resistance groups on many worlds, but they are afraid to act without support. A new voice joined the conversation. Colonel Shin-dae had just returned from a secret mission behind enemy lines. He was the leader of human special forces, and he looked tired but determined. Admiral, I have been on 5 different hegemony worlds in the past month. The situation is different than we thought. Everyone at the table turned to listen to him. Most of the species serving in the hegemony military are not willing slaves. They have been brainwashed to believe that resistance is hopeless, but when they see proof that the hegemony can be defeated, some of them remember who they used to be. What kind of proof? General Yu asked. Colonel Shin smiled grimly. We have been broadcasting recordings of our victory here at Kepler 442. We show them that a small human fleet defeated a much larger hegemony force. The effect has been remarkable. He activated his own holographic display, showing footage from his covert missions. On Zerion 7, an entire regiment of hegemony soldiers laid down their weapons and joined the local resistance after seeing our battle recordings. On Viac Prime, the orbital defense platforms were sabotaged by their own crews. This was the first good news Admiral Park had heard in weeks. How many worlds have seen uprisings? At least 20, and the number is growing. But the hegemony is responding with extreme violence. They are destroying entire cities to make examples. The mood in the room became darker. Everyone knew that their actions were causing innocent people to suffer, but they also knew that doing nothing would be worse. Engineer Ko spoke up again. Admiral, I have an idea. Instead of waiting for the hegemony to attack us, what if we attack them first? Explain. According to our intelligence, the hegemony fleet is gathering at a staging area called Nexus Station. It is a massive space fortress with shipyards and supply depots. If we could destroy it, We could delay their invasion for months. General, Yu shook his head. That would be suicide. Nexus Station is defended by thousands of ships and orbital weapons platforms. Not if we use the right strategy, Colonel Shin said. I have been studying the station layout. There are weak points and we have allies inside. Admiral Park studied the holographic display showing Nexus Station. It was indeed heavily defended, but it was also the heart of hegemony power in this region of the galaxy. Destroying it would send a message to every species that the hegemony could be hurt. How many ships would we need, he asked. Commander Lee ran calculations on her computer. For a direct assault, we would need at least 2,000 warships. We only have about 300. But what if it was not a direct assault? Colonel Shin suggested. What if we used stealth and surprise? Engineer Ko nodded excitedly. I have been working on new technology that could help. If we can get a small strike force close to the station, we can plant bombs in the main reactor core. How small a strike force? Admiral Park asked. Maybe 50 ships, mostly fighters and fast attack craft. General Yu looked skeptical. 50 ships against thousands? The pilots would never make it home. Maybe not all of them, Admiral Park said quietly. But if it saves millions of lives across the galaxy, some pilots might think that is a fair trade. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what the Admiral was suggesting. A suicide mission. Zephian was the first to speak. Admiral, if you are looking for volunteers, my people will provide pilots. The hegemony destroyed our homeworld. We have nothing left to lose. Mine too, said Yixara. The furry creatures of Palaxi are known as the best pilots in the galaxy. We will fly with you. One by one, the other alien representatives volunteered their people for the dangerous mission. Admiral Park felt both proud and sad. These beings had already lost so much to the hegemony, and now they were willing to sacrifice even more. Very well, he said finally. We will plan the attack on Nexus Station. But first, we need more intelligence and better weapons. Ambassador, Nam received another message on her tablet. Her face went pale as she read it. Admiral, we just received a communication from Earth. Hegemony scout ships have been spotted at the edge of human space. They are looking for our homeworld. The implications were terrifying. If the hegemony found Earth, they would destroy it completely as revenge for the human interference in their empire. Admiral Park stood up, his decision made. Commander Lee, send a message to all human ships in the galaxy. Tell them to return to Earth immediately for defense. Sir, that would leave our alien allies unprotected. I know. Admiral Park looked around the table at all the representatives who had been willing to fight and die alongside humanity. But Earth has 4 billion people who cannot defend themselves. I cannot let them be destroyed because of our actions here. Zephian stood up and placed one of his 4 hands on Admiral Park's shoulder. Admiral, we understand. Protect your homeworld. We will continue the fight here. You cannot win without human support, General Yu said. Maybe not, Yixara replied. But we can make the hegemony pay a high price for their victory. And maybe that will inspire others to join the resistance. Admiral Park felt torn between his duty to protect Earth and his promise to help the alien refugees. Both choices seemed to lead to disaster. Then Commander Lee spoke up with excitement. Sir, I am receiving a priority message from Earth Defense Command. Put it through. The holographic display showed Admiral Chang Su, the commander of Earth's home fleet. He was an old friend of Admiral Park. June, I know you are planning to return to Earth for defense, Admiral Chang said. But I have new orders from the government. Earth will defend itself. Your mission is to continue fighting the hegemony wherever you can do the most damage. Chang, the hegemony fleet heading for Earth is enormous. You cannot stop them alone. The attack on Nexus Station began at exactly midnight, ship time. Admiral Park Jun watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as 50 small ships moved through space toward the massive hegemony fortress. Most of the pilots were volunteers from alien species that had suffered under hegemony rule. Captain Park Yun, who specialized in psychological warfare, spoke into her microphone. Her voice was being broadcast across all hegemony communication channels. "Attention, hegemony forces," she said calmly. "You have enslaved innocent people across the galaxy. You have destroyed beautiful worlds and broken apart families. Today, that ends." From his position 3 light minutes away from the battle, Admiral Park could see Nexus Station on his long-range sensors. The fortress was enormous, bigger than most moons. It had thousands of weapon platforms and was protected by over 2,000 warships. Colonel Shinde led the strike force in a modified human fighter. His job was to get close enough to the station to plant explosive charges in the main reactor core. It seemed impossible, but the colonel had done impossible things before. "Strike leader to command." Colonel Shin's voice crackled over the communication system. "We are beginning our approach. Hegemony fighters are moving to intercept." Through his tactical display, Admiral Park could see hundreds of enemy fighters swarming toward the small strike force like angry insects. The human and alien pilots were badly outnumbered, but they had advantages the enemy did not expect. Chief Petty Officer Lee Jun, a veteran soldier who had been training mixed-species combat units, coordinated the fighter attack from his command ship. "All pilots, remember your training. Use your species' natural abilities to confuse the enemy." The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human pilots used their aggressive tactics to draw enemy fire, while the four-armed Zephian pilots could control their ships with incredible precision. The small furry Palaxi pilots flew their fighters through spaces so narrow that larger enemy ships could not follow. But the most surprising fighters were the Alani, the crystal-skinned people that the humans had rescued months earlier. Elder Cathara had insisted that his people join the attack, even though they had never been warriors before. "Ilani Squadron, this is Elder Cathara," came the musical voice over the communication channel. "Remember, we fight not for revenge, but to protect others from suffering as we suffered." The Ilani fighters moved in perfect coordination, like they were dancing instead of fighting. Their ships used harmonic weapons, sound-based technology that could disrupt enemy electronics. When Ilani fighters attacked together, entire groups of enemy ships would lose power and drift helplessly in space. "Incredible," Captain Park Uni said as she watched the battle. "The Ilani have turned their peaceful nature into a weapon. They fight to protect, not to destroy. But even with all their advantages, the strike force was taking heavy losses." Admiral Park watched as one after another of the brave pilots disappeared from his tactical display. "Colonel Shin, what is your status?" he asked. "We have lost 30% of our fighters, but we are close to the station," Colonel Shin replied. His voice was calm, but Admiral Park could hear weapon fire in the background. "The hegemony defenses are stronger than we expected." Engineer Ko Minji, who was monitoring the battle from her position on the Indomitable, suddenly looked up with excitement. "Admiral, I am detecting something strange. The hegemony ships are not fighting as well as they should." "What do you mean?" "Their coordination is poor. It is like they are not used to fighting enemies who fight back effectively." Admiral Park realized what Engineer Ko had discovered. The hegemony had spent so many years conquering helpless worlds that they had forgotten how to fight real battles against determined opponents. "All Strike Force pilots, this is Admiral Park," he announced. "The enemy is not as skilled as they appear. They are used to easy victories. Show them what real warriors look like." The tide of battle began to change. The human and alien pilots fought with a courage and creativity that the hegemony forces could not match. Slowly, the strike force pushed through the defensive lines toward Nexus Station itself. "Strike leader to command," Colonel Shin reported. "I can see the station docking bays beginning final approach." But as Colonel Shin's fighter approached the massive fortress, thousands of defensive weapons turned toward him. Energy beams and missiles filled space around his small ship. "Colonel, you will never survive that defensive fire," Chief Petty Officer Lee warned. "Maybe not," Colonel Shin replied. "But I do not have to survive. I just have to complete the mission." Admiral Park felt his heart sink. He was about to watch one of his best officers die for the mission, but then something unexpected happened. "Strike leader, this is Pilot Yixara," came a furry voice over the communication channel. "My squadron will clear a path for you." Before anyone could stop her, the small Palaxi pilot led her fighters directly into the heaviest defensive fire. The Palaxi were known as the best pilots in the galaxy, and they proved it by flying through weapon fire that should have been impossible to survive. One by one, the Palaxi fighters were destroyed, but they took out dozens of defensive weapon platforms. Soon a narrow corridor opened in the defensive fire, leading straight to the station docking bay. "Path is clear, Colonel," Yixara reported. Her voice was weak. Her ship had been badly damaged. "Go now, before they can reposition their weapons." "Colonel." Shin's fighter shot through the gap and disappeared into the massive space station. For several minutes there was no communication from him. Then his voice came back, full of satisfaction. "Explosive charges placed on main reactor core. All pilots, get away from the station. This is going to be a big explosion." The surviving fighters from the strike force turned and flew away from Nexus Station as fast as they could. Behind them, the fortress began to glow with internal fires as Colonel Shin's explosives damaged the reactor systems. "All pilots, report status," Chief Petty Officer Lee called. The responses came back slowly. Of the 50 pilots who had started the mission, only 19 were still alive. They had paid a terrible price, but they had succeeded. Nexus Station exploded in a ball of light that could be seen from several star systems away. The massive fortress, which had been the center of hegemony power in this region, was completely destroyed. Along with it went hundreds of hegemony warships, thousands of enemy soldiers, and irreplaceable shipyards and supply depots. "Strike leader, do you copy?" Admiral Park called. There was no response from Colonel Shin. The communication channels were quiet for several minutes. Everyone was thinking about the brave pilots who had died to achieve this victory. Finally, Elder Kithara's musical voice broke the silence. "Admiral Park, my people have a saying. When someone gives their life to protect others, they become part of the eternal song that connects all living things. Colonel Shin and all the pilots who died today, they are part of that song now." Admiral Park nodded, even though the Alani leader could not see him. They will be remembered. But there was no time for a long ceremony. Captain Park Yoon was monitoring hegemony communications, and what she heard was both good and bad news. "Admiral, the destruction of Nexus Station has caused panic in the hegemony command structure. I am intercepting messages from dozens of worlds where local populations are rebelling." "That is good news. What is the bad news?" "The hegemony leadership is furious. They are ordering all available ships to attack Earth immediately. They want to destroy humanity completely as an example to other species." Admiral Park felt cold fear. Even with help from the major galactic powers, Earth might not be able to survive the full fury of the hegemony military. "How many ships are they sending?" he asked. Commander Lee checked her intelligence reports. "At least 8,000 warships, sir. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 8,000 ships." Admiral Park had never imagined fighting against such a massive force, but he also knew that this was humanity's greatest opportunity. If they could defeat the hegemony's main fleet, the war would be over. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "All ships maximum speed." "Sir, we will arrive after the battle has already begun," Lieutenant Song pointed out. "I know, but maybe we can arrive in time to make a difference." As the human fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, Admiral Park thought about all the species that were now fighting for their freedom across the galaxy. The hegemony had created this situation by being too cruel for too long. Now their victims were fighting back, inspired by the example of humanity. Engineer Ko approached Admiral Park with a tablet in her hands. "Sir, I have been analyzing the battle data from Nexus Station. I think I know how we can defeat the main hegemony fleet." "Tell me." "The hegemony ships all use centralized command systems. If we can disrupt their main command ship, the entire fleet will become confused and disorganized. How do we identify their command ship?" "It will be the largest vessel, probably in the center of their formation, and it will be heavily protected." Admiral Park smiled grimly. "So we need to fight through thousands of enemy ships to reach one target. That sounds like a job for humans." Chief Petty Officer Lee, who had survived the attack on Nexus Station, spoke up from his station. Sir, I have trained mixed-species combat units for months. The Battle of Sol was the largest space combat in galactic history. Over 50,000 ships from hundreds of different species fought in the space around Earth. Admiral Park Jun led his fleet straight into the heart of the enemy formation, looking for the Hegemony command ship. The Hegemony flagship was easy to find. It was a massive vessel the size of a small moon, surrounded by protective rings of smaller warships. From its bridge, Overlord Vexitar directed the battle with cold efficiency. All human ships concentrate fire on the command vessel, Admiral Park ordered. Everyone else, keep the escort ships busy. The Indomitable and its sister ships pushed, through waves of enemy fighters and defensive fire. Around them, the mixed-species fleet that Admiral Park had assembled fought with incredible courage. Human pilots flew alongside Alani Harmony ships, while Palaxi fighters danced between Zephian heavy cruisers. Commander Lee Hana worked frantically at her communication station, coordinating the attacks of dozens of different species. Her translation programs had become so advanced that aliens who had never met before could fight together, as if they had trained for years. Admiral, the Valdari fleet is requesting permission to attempt a healing technique on captured Hegemony. Crews, she reported. Healing technique? They want to try removing the mental conditioning that makes Hegemony soldiers obey. They think they can turn enemy crews back to their original species. Admiral Park was amazed. Even in the middle of the largest battle in history, the Valdari were thinking about healing instead of destruction. Tell them to try it, but be careful. Dr. Yang Sora, who was coordinating with alien scientists, suddenly looked up with excitement. Admiral, the Alani have made a discovery. Their harmonic weapons can disrupt the Hegemony's central command system, but they need to get very close to the flagship. How close? Close enough to touch it. That would mean flying through the heaviest defensive fire in the battle. It would be almost certain death for any pilot who tried. I will do it, came Elder Cathara's musical voice over the communication channel. The Alani leader had insisted on personally leading his people's fighters in the battle. Elder, you are too important to risk, Admiral Park protested. Your people need you alive. Admiral, my people need to be free more than they need. One old leader. I have lived long enough to see my world burn and then see it reborn. Now let me help free the galaxy. Before Admiral Park could stop him, Elder Kithara's crystal-winged fighter broke away from the main formation and headed straight for the Hegemony flagship. Around him flew the other Ilani pilots, their ships glowing with harmonic energy. The defensive fire was incredible. Energy beams and missiles filled space around the small Ilani fighters. One by one they were destroyed by the overwhelming firepower, but Elder Kithara kept flying forward. His ship took hit after hit, but he refused to turn back. Finally, just as his fighter was about to be destroyed completely, he reached the Ida Isama hull of the massive flagship. For all the innocent people who have suffered, Elder Kethara said over the communication channel. Then his ship exploded against the Hegemony command vessel. The harmonic explosion from Elder Kethara's sacrifice sent waves of disruption through the flagship's computer systems. All across the Hegemony fleet, ships suddenly stopped responding to orders. Crews found themselves confused and disoriented as their mental conditioning was disrupted. Captain Park Yoon, who had been monitoring Hegemony communications, reported with amazement. Admiral, their command structure is falling apart. Individual ship captains are starting to think for themselves for the first time in years. This was the moment Admiral Park had been waiting for. All ships attack now while they are confused. The combined human and alien fleet pressed their advantage. Ships that had been fighting for the Hegemony just minutes before suddenly switched sides as their crews remembered who they used to be. But Overlord Vextar was not finished yet. From his damaged flagship, he broadcast a message across all communication channels. Pathetic inferior species. His harsh voice filled every ship in the battle. You think you can defeat the Hegemony with your primitive emotions and weakness? I will show you the price of defying superior beings. The Hegemony flagship began to glow with dangerous energy. Engineering readouts showed that Vextar was preparing to overload his main reactor and create an explosion large enough to destroy everything in the solar system, including Earth. He's going to blow up his own ship and take all of us with him. Engineer Ko warned. Admiral Park made a quick decision. All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. Indomitable will handle the flagship. Sir, you cannot stop a reactor overload. With weapons fire, Lieutenant Song protested. I know, we are going to ram them. The bridge of the Indomitable was quiet for a moment. Everyone understood what Admiral Park was suggesting. A suicide attack to save Earth and billions of innocent lives. Captain An Minho, who had led marine operations throughout the war, stepped forward. Admiral, it has been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, Captain. But before the Indomitable could begin its final attack run, something unexpected happened. Dozens of former hegemony ships, their crews now freed from mental conditioning, moved to surround their old flagship. This is Captain Zurvan of the liberated ship Retribution, came a voice over the communication channel. My crew and I were slaves of the hegemony for 20 years. We will not let Overlord Vextar destroy this system. All liberated ships follow my lead. The former hegemony vessels, now controlled by their original crews, attacked their old flagship with desperate fury. They knew they would probably die, but they were finally free to choose their own fate. The battle around the hegemony flagship was brutal and short. One by one, the liberated ships were destroyed by the massive vessel's weapons. But they kept coming, driven by years of suppressed anger and the new hope that the humans had given them. Finally, the combined damage was too much. The hegemony flagship's reactor went critical, but in a controlled explosion that destroyed only the ship itself. Overlord Vexitar and his most loyal followers were vaporized instantly. With their supreme leader dead and their command structure destroyed, the remaining hegemony forces surrendered or fled. The battle was over. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking out at the aftermath of the greatest battle in galactic history. Space was filled with wreckage, but also with ships from dozens of species who had fought together for freedom. Admiral, Commander Lee reported, we are receiving surrender messages from hegemony forces across the galaxy. It appears the Empire is collapsing. Dr. Yang Sora joined them at the main window. Sir, I am getting reports from liberated worlds. The hegemony's slave camps are being opened. Millions of people are being freed. The cost had been enormous. Thousands of ships had been destroyed, and tens of thousands of brave pilots and soldiers had died. But their sacrifice had freed half the galaxy from oppression. Commander Lee, open a channel to all ships, Admiral Park ordered. When the communication link was established, he addressed the mixed fleet of humans and aliens who had fought together. Today, we have proven that no empire, no matter how powerful, can stand against the united will of free people. We have shown that species with different cultures and abilities can fight together as one family. He paused, thinking about all the friends they had lost during the war. Elder Kethera, Colonel Shin, Pilot Yixera, and thousands of others gave their lives so that others could be free. We will remember their sacrifice. We will build a galaxy where no species has to face oppression alone. The response came from hundreds of ships in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. We will remember. Over the following months, Admiral Park worked with leaders from across the galaxy to establish a new galactic confederation. Unlike the old system where strong species dominated weak ones, the new government was based on mutual protection and cooperation. The humans, despite their crucial role in defeating the hegemony, did not seek to become the new rulers of the galaxy. Instead, they became the protectors, the species that other worlds could call on when they needed help. Captain Lee Hanna, now promoted to Admiral, established the Emergency Response Network, a communication system that allowed any species in the galaxy to send a distress call and know that help would come. The Alani rebuilt their crystal cities, but now they also built defensive stations crewed by volunteers from many species. They had learned that sometimes peace must be protected by those willing to fight for it. The former hegemony worlds were not punished for their years of service to the Empire. Instead, they were helped to remember their original cultures and rebuild their societies. Many of them became some of the strongest supporters of the new confederation. General Yu continued training mixed-species military units, sharing human combat tactics with anyone who wanted to learn them. His motto became, "Fight not to conquer but to protect." Engineer Co. developed new technologies that were shared freely among all Confederation members. Her innovations helped former slave worlds rebuild their civilizations and defend themselves against future threats. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Park received a message that made him smile. It came from the edge of the galaxy, from a species that had never been contacted before.